All right, today, as I said, we are talking about boundaries, people pleasing, which I need help with, and all that quiet pressure and loud pressure to be the good mom, the perfect mom, the woman that gets everything done. And, just that pressure that we're constantly feeling in our neighborhood, at our fingertips. We're going to talk about that. I'm here with Diane Sorensen. She's helping women ditch that approval-based living. Like, I want to drop all the shoulds because my nervous system is tired. And I want us to start showing up for ourselves, not just performing all the time. So we that can be ourselves, not just the version that we think we're supposed to be. So I'm so happy that you're here, that we're talking about this, especially right now with what's going on. I think not only with what's going on in the world, but what we're also seeing with what's happening with AI and what's happening just with where the modern times are going and how fast things are moving.
Yeah.
I feel more exhausted than ever. I feel more tired than ever, even though I have more knowledge than ever. I want to get into how you help your personal journey, but I also just want to dive right in because I know I have a lot of exhausted moms listening, and those moms, they're doing everything, quote, right, and they still feel like they're screwing it up all the time. So tell us, just give it to us. Who are you? You are magnificent, but why are we talking about this? Why are you so passionate about talking about this? And can we talk about why we are doing everything right? And why do we feel like we are screwing it up? Why do we always feel like we're behind, no matter how hard we're working?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
I'm
you.
so happy you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I love having these conversations. So thank you for inviting me on to have this conversation. And I so appreciate your listeners, anybody who, when you are listening to this, I see you. You are not alone. We are here together. And so, you were talking about the exhaustion, the performance, the doing everything right. And why are we still feeling like we're not doing it right? And I really think, Scotty, it's because we are using a primitive system in our modern day world. And so I believe we are being called forward to a more complex way of being, which involves emotional development.
Okay. To dive into that, what do you mean by a primitive system that we are carrying forth? It's, I guess, done.
So, I get the people pleasing stuff because I always say I'm the people pleasing perfectionist turned truth teller.
Okay.
I was very immersed in those patterns. I was the good girl, who became the good mom. And so, I had a mom, I can see now looking back that she was very anxious about how people saw her and then therefore how people saw her children. And so she, it was very important to her that we present ourselves in a pleasing way, that we behaved well, that we appeared pleasing. And so that is the pattern that I inherited. And then unwittingly, when I became a mother, handed those same patterns to my children. And I took on that belief system of what are other people thinking? What are other people going to think? And it truly is what drove me. Every choice, every action I took was really based on what are other people going to think? And when we do that, we're really unknowingly living a performance. I was performing. I had an image to keep up. And so accidentally, I, involved my children in this performance of mine. And it wasn't until it all came crashing down that I realized the pressure I was putting on myself and the pressure I was putting on my children. It came crashing down when it came into my awareness. It was brought to me that my oldest child at the time, or my oldest child, she was 17 at the time, was self-harming. And then at that same time, my marriage was also falling apart and I went through a divorce. And so these two things happened simultaneously and I couldn't look away.
Yeah.
And so that is what brought to the surface these invisible patterns that I began to unravel. And the question that really cracked the door open just a little bit was, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Right?
Especially when
How did I get here?
you were doing it, you were doing all the things,
I was
right?
doing it
Weren't
all
you
right.
following,
I
you
was
were
the good
following the
girl.
rules, right?
The good
You were
girl doesn't have
following the
children
rules.
that harm themselves. The good girl does not go through a divorce. The good Catholic girl does not go through a divorce.
Oh gosh, I have goosebumps because I know this feeling. It's so confusing, right? It's so, you the rug is pulled out from under you and you feel so, it's like you at one point you feel so disheartened. It's so unfair, right? You've worked so hard to do everything right. And that perception is such a tricky place to live in. And I've done this too, because on the outside, you're pleasing, you're doing everything right. The bow on your kid's hair is in the right place. Everybody's ironed. The holiday card looks great. The baseboards are cleaned. But in the bedroom, are you guys talking? Are you communicating? It's okay though, because the flowers in the pots look great. You know, your kid got an A in math, but is your kid having fun on the playground, right? Like, do you know your kid? Do you know that your kid, what kind of eggs they like, right? Are they having fun in school, right? So it's hard because you quote are doing all the right things, especially if that's what, it's a weird place to be also when you are doing what your mom taught you to do. You're given that playbook. You think, I'm doing it. I'm doing the right things.
Right.
So it's,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not failing the class, but wait, I got a bad grade. So how did that happen? Okay. So
right.
it's,
and so it was like, how did I get here? What?
yeah.
And again, that seed of being curious.
Okay.
Open the door just a bit for a little light to start shining through.
Okay.
And for things to come to me that I'm like, like a book landed on my desk at work. I'm a former teacher. A book landed on me, and I'm like, where did this book come from? And started reading. It was like, oh my God. Or, me looking into different trainings as a teacher. And then these trainings would come to me and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is, connected to my personal life and my relationship with my children. So just, I got curious as to why I ended up here, and things started to unfold. And, eventually I learned relationship-based practices, I'm going to call them.
Okay.
And I practiced them in my classroom. I brought them into my classroom.
Okay.
And I started using these. How do we build relationships in the classroom? How do we make this classroom our classroom? And then as I was doing that, it's like, okay, now how do I do this also at home? It's like, okay, how is this our home? And how can we work together and how can we build these relationships?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it started. I can say over time, I hired, I went to therapists, my daughter went to therapist, I hired a coach, and that's when things really took off.
Yeah.
And so then I ended up being the behavior specialist in the system and teaching other teachers and staff these same type of practices, and then having parents start to ask me, hey, can you work with me and my family? And so eventually that's the path I took. And I
Okay.
left the school system and I started coaching families.
Okay.
And then it's evolved to, I really basically work with women.
Okay.
And this piece of motherhood, reframing motherhood, not as a role to play or a standard to meet, but as a lifelong relationship that I believe calls us into truth, presence, and self-leadership. And
I love that you think of it's a relationship. Yeah.
yeah, because when I was raising children, historically, we don't think of it as a relationship. We kind of think of relationship, well, a relationship is like, on Facebook, I'm in a relationship. Well, we're all in relationships all of the time. But we tend to think of relationship as with a romantic partner.
Yeah.
It's like that's the only relationship that we're allowed to have emotion in. But we're always having relationships. It's how we relate to things outside of us, even ourselves, how we relate to our own emotions and all the different parts of ourselves, how we relate to our thoughts, how we relate to others, our children, how we relate to money, so all of life is really relationships. So I look at motherhood now as a relationship between an adult and young humans.
Yeah.
Because when I was raising kids, again, historically, it's seen at, okay, I'm in the mother role, you're in the child role. This is my job as a mom. And, it's kind of, I'm the all knower. I will tell you what to do and then you do it. And that's, And that ends up creating a lot of friction and, fractures the relationship.
And honestly, do we really know? Do we actually all have the answers? I think that puts so much pressure on the mom. I don't have all the answers. I've never been this age before, and I've never had kids this age before. So I actually don't have all the answers. I like the way you're thinking about this as a relationship, because a relationship is always changing and always evolving, right? If we looked at ourselves and our kids, we are in a relationship. Think about your relationship in high school and college. We were we were ebbing and flowing. If we gave ourselves, if we were thinking about it that way, I think it would allow us to have good days and bad days, ups and downs, because the same thing in what you said, our kids are going to relate to us. I have bad days my kids are allowed to relate to my bad day. Right?
Yeah.
They're allowed to do that. Right. I love the way you're thinking about this, because it allows us to be human.
Right. And it also, opens us up to being curious about how is my child experiencing me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
and,
love that.
we all want to be a good mom. Of course
Sure.
we want to be a good mom. Of course we want to do a good job. But what does that even mean?
Yeah.
What are we basing good on? It's so subjective, right? And historically, we based it on our child's behavior.
Right? Absolutely. You're right. Absolutely.
And
the perception, right? And the perception in the neighborhood, at school.
Then, right. Or they're achieving, if they're getting the good grades, then I'm doing a good job. If they're succeeding, whatever we make that mean, I'm doing a good job. If they're, performing athletically, I'm doing a good job. If, and then as they get older, it's, the amount of education, that they're going to go to. I have so many parents I work with that, if their child isn't going to college, they feel like they're doing something, they've done it wrong. And it's like, these are just different paths, because here's what's happening is that the goalposts keep moving. To be a good mom, the goalposts keep moving. And that means there's more pressure on moms and there's more
Yeah.
pressure on children to achieve
Yeah.
at higher and higher and higher levels.
Yeah. So how do you work with a mom to get comfortable with her goalpost being at a different place on the field than her best friend or that mom, or maybe her own goalpost? How does she get comfortable with that? Because that's hard if maybe it's not where she
Well,
thought it,
part of
quote,
it
should
is
be.
part of it is tolerating the discomfort.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I walk alongside women to help them become aware of and acknowledge some of these patterns, to look at, what's going on with their kids from a different perspective or angle, and really honoring what is true. So I always say I am a boundary expert, and I always say boundaries are our truth. They're the expression of our truth. And boundary work, which I call it, boundary work, is that exploration of what is true for me. Because we're not necessarily who we think we are.
Okay.
Right?
Talk about that a little bit more. So it's like a boundary is going to be true in her nervous system and her body versus what her ego is trying to tell her. Is that
Boom.
what you mean? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So, so a lot of times we just say, well, this is just who I am. I can't change because this is just who I am. Or, like I used to be a yeller. And so, I work with a lot of moms who are yellers, and, a lot of things that say, well, that's just who I am. I can't change that. And that's not true. So we do the work of really going inward and really discovering what is actually true for you deep in your soul. What is your inner wisdom?
Like aside from what your mom did and how you grew up and what's like you're getting all that conditioning, all that programming
so that
out of the way.
Yeah, that's your wounded self. So, everybody was like, oh, and I did this too. It's like, my authentic self? Well, am I like two selves? Do I have two selves? And kind of we do. We have
I love that.
our authentic self, which is deep inside. And we have a wounded self or a false self that we've created patterns around to emotionally survive. So for me, it was being that pleaser, that doing everything right, that perfectionism, making sure everyone's happy, don't rot the boat. And, I walked through the world on eggshells, not knowing I was playing out these patterns, again, until something really big had to get my attention. I couldn't look away. But oftentimes, these signs do come earlier. They're the anxiety. They're the, maybe the depression. They're the, I just don't feel really happy, even though I've checked all the societal boxes. So what is wrong with me that, I can't ever be happy? These are the signs. But a lot of times they kind of poke us and then we just shove them away.
We can tolerate them, right? We can kind of tolerate them and get distracted away from them.
We distract ourselves. Absolutely. We do so many things to distract ourselves. And so, these are these little signs that maybe something needs to change. And here's the thing too, I really want listeners to know is that these patterns aren't bad. They're not wrong. They served you up until now. So they got you to where you are. But once you're there and you're like, okay, this doesn't really seem as fulfilling to me as I thought it was going to be. Or you're noticing I'm just so anxious all the time. So now these patterns are holding you back. So now it's time. They're not going to get you where you're going. So
Yeah.
now it's time to go inward, understand them and move through them. And, that takes what we call the work, and that's what I call boundary work. I think boundaries are highly, highly misunderstood. And why is because we put the word boundaries in this primitive system that we're in. And so we see it as a more of a performative thing. And so through that lens, they become something we put on someone else.
Oh, interesting. It kind of falls into what you were talking about. And you said this earlier, the relationship with yourself, right? If we look at this as a relationship with ourselves, we're also evolving. So we're allowed to change. Maybe it wasn't a boundary that we were ready for 5 years ago but we're ready now because we've evolved and this relationship with ourself has matured, right?
Yeah. There was a time, Scotty, that I was like, I keep hearing this word boundaries, and I thought I knew what they were, but I don't know that I know what they are.
So it's not necessarily a don't call me after 5. Maybe but you're talking about
a boundary.
That is a boundary, but you're talking about
one type of boundary, but there's lots of boundaries. But here's the thing, Scotty, when we do that, we say, okay, here's my boundary. So you just said, don't call me after 5. So the boundary is I'm not going to take your call after 5. So boundaries are about what I'm going to do or not.
Okay. Or
and
not
so
do.
Here's the thing. When we tell people, okay, don't call me after 5, that is my boundary. And then somebody calls you after 5. And then we're like, so my boundaries aren't honored. They don't care about my boundaries. And it's almost like we would rather not set the boundary than have somebody cross it like that, because then it's like, oh, I'm not enough, or there's some feeling of being less than. They don't care about me because they didn't hear anyway. They're not hearing me.
Or this is hard. I have to keep setting it. They didn't get it the first time.
Why do they keep doing this? I've told them once. Well, here's the thing. This is how we teach people how to treat us. That behavior of them continuing to call you isn't about you. It's about that.
Yeah.
So when we say, I'm not going to take phone calls after 5, then don't.
Then don't.
Yeah, so if your boundaries are being crossed, it is you who's crossing them.
Oh, interesting. Because if you keep taking the call.
Yeah, because you're not honoring you. And here it is, Scotty, we are the foundation of our life. We are the foundation of all of our relationships. So ask yourself, how do I treat myself? How do I talk to myself? So here's the deal. When I became aware of how I was talking to myself internally in my head, it was super critical. And it really wasn't even my voice. It was my mother's voice. And maybe teachers' voices, maybe the bully's voice at school. I think our own voice, our authentic voice, is that whisper. It's the whisper. It's the whisper inside that says, I don't think this is the way. And then you just, then your head goes, oh my gosh, don't go that way. Go this way because this is familiar. This is comfortable. Here we go over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, this journey, when I started it in that place of where my child was suffering, my marriage was done. That was a really, really dark place. And it was the catalyst for my becoming. That's how I got from there to here. And that has been, I will use Glennon Doyle's words, it's been brutal. It's an absolutely beautiful
Mm.
journey, and it is also brutal at times.
Wow.
But I would not have taken this journey.
Yeah.
And now I'm
Yeah.
a grandmother. My children are grown, and we get to do this together. And they're on
Sure.
their own journeys, and they have to discover, their own path. But I can see, I can see patterns changing through my grandchildren, which is
Ah.
just really, really beautiful. It's like healing generational patterns in real
Yeah.
time.
So I was going to ask you two questions. One, it's a hard question. And if it's, you can tell me if this is too much, but I would like to know if you don't mind sharing the signs that you noticed about your daughter. Because I have a lot of parents who are listening with teenagers right now, and I get a lot of questions. Kids are walking in the door, they're going down the hall and they're slamming the door, right? They're hiding in their rooms. And so I think there's this feeling about parents. Do I barge in? How do I know when they need me? I don't want to be the helicopter, the hovering mom. I want to give them autonomy. I want to let them, they know I'm here, I think, but I don't want to smother them, but I also don't want to miss out. I think there's this kind of eggshell. They don't know where and what signs to look for, in terms of, are they drinking too much? Are they socializing? Like, we don't know, because teenage life is so different from when I was growing up as a teenager.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that question, with the brutal journey that you went through, I'd love to notice more about how this has helped your relationship with your daughter, knowing like what, that she's seen you go through and what you've gone through and how this has helped you guys in where you are right now. If you don't mind sharing that, because I think that would be so helpful.
Yeah. So first, I want to say there is no right way. There truly isn't. And I know we do. We reach for that. What's the right thing? What's the right thing? There was so much rightness in my brain, in my nervous system. There is no right way.
Okay.
There is just a way. And we're all different humans.
Yeah.
And your children are different humans. And like at the beginning of this, you said something about, I've never done this before. I've never raised a child. I've never been the mother of a child of this age. Well, and then, okay, so you do that with one child, but then another child comes along and you haven't done motherhood with that human at that age either. So it's always new. So just having said that, I missed all the signs, Scotty, to be honest. I missed them. And I didn't know this was happening until it was happening. And somebody, a middleman almost, came to me and said, "This is what's happening."
Great. Thank goodness we need guardian angels sometimes, I mean, thank goodness.
Oh, okay. And why did I miss the signs? Because I didn't know the signs. Later years, we talk openly about this now, her and and I've said to her, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I remember first time I asked her that, and she said, "Mom, I did."
Oh, interesting.
So she tried to tell me, but I couldn't be with my own, she tried to tell me that she felt depressed, that, she seemed to have all these signs, and I just couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
And I think part of that was because I couldn't be with my own depression. I had no idea that I even had depression. Until way later into this journey. Because to me, depression was, I can't get out of bed. Well, I was high functioning depression. Like I didn't stop. I just kept going all the time. And, you hear about toxic positivity. That was me.
Yes.
That was me.
Yeah.
I was positive. And then there were times where people were like, oh, you're so positive. But somewhere in me, it was like, but I'm doing it to survive. I had no idea what that meant, but there was some part of me way deep down that knew I was so positive because that's the way I needed to be. To really get away from the life that I didn't want to, the feelings that I didn't want to have, that everything that comes with trying to be the best, trying to be good, trying to be perfect, trying to gain everyone's approval. That's really what I was doing. And now I say, I was addicted to approval. Yeah. Like disapproval to me was like death.
Yeah.
So I would do anything to gain approval. And I mean, it did get me through for a while, but
it's a dopamine hit, right? It's fuel.
That was a long answer to your question. What were the signs?
Helpful.
I missed them. So here are the signs. When your child comes to you and says, something's off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel right.
Yeah.
Or they just are not wanting to go to school. They're not wanting, to participate, or it could be the other way and be really super high functioning and they're busy all the time, to get away from that. So, it's really being present with your children and knowing your child.
Oh, that's super helpful, right?
So that when something is off, then you are aware of this seems kind of off. And then to be curious. One of the things that parents often ask me or say to me is, I just really want them to come to me when they're having a problem or when there's an issue. But the thing is, as they're growing up, if we're so fixated on behavior and fixing their behavior, that trust doesn't develop because they constantly have to be thinking, am I doing this right? Is this the right way? Is this good? Am I going to get in trouble? Is she going to be mad? Is she going to yell? And so the work really starts with knowing myself.
Yeah. But that goes back to the performance, right? That's that. And I think what you said is, you've said so many great things. I wrote down, there's no right way to do this. There's just the way. And I think that right there is so profound because I think if we can remove the word, quote, right, it's just the way. It's just life. You're just getting through this journey with yourself and your family. And I think the other thing is just, we don't live in a bubble, right? If we are not taking care of ourselves, it does leak. It spills, and if we're not feeding ourselves, if we're not processing what's going on in our bodies, it does interfere with what we're able to do. Think about how distracted we are. If we're anxious about something, how distracted we are, and that we are missing things that are being said at the dinner table. We are missing those words. And sometimes I get 5 words from my teenager. What if 2 of those words are all I needed to know about how he's feeling that day, right? And if I'm so distracted about if I'm getting likes on social media or if, that person didn't text me back or, it's not to say that those things aren't important, but it's like, how can we process how we're feeling so that then we can know how to be able to process what they're feeling, right? My mom couldn't process a feeling in the world.
Right, no.
So now as a 49-year-old, I feel like I'm going back to preschool. I'm in feelings 101.
Yes. And that goes back to what I said at the top, that, your mom was more in this primitive system where we just had our physical being and we just, looked at our physical being, we're being called to a more complex way of our humanness. And that includes our emotions. Because really, two things I want to say, Scotty, is one, allow yourself to mess up. Because you're going to mess up. I mean, we're humans and we mess up. So we're going to mess up and you're going to struggle and your kids are going to struggle. And that is okay. Our goal isn't for our kids to not struggle. It's for them to know how to move through struggle. Because if
we work so hard to teach them how to succeed, we have to teach them how to fail.
Yes.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Or they won't succeed because they're going, we need both of those things.
We need both those things.
Yeah. So if we protect them from struggle, they grow up. Are they just all of a sudden now going to know how to move through a struggle, or they're just never going to have a struggle because you've done it perfectly?
Right.
That's an illusion.
Yeah.
Humans struggle. And here's the thing. Struggle is inevitable and it's essential for our growth.
Yeah. And something else you talked about with the authentic self and the performance self, I think of it as like the social self and the essence self, right? Like I'm working so hard to really think about that, and I equate it to if I learn how to swim, I can then hop in the pool and help teach my kids how to swim. Same thing. If I know how to access and appreciate my true self, what are my core values? How can I hear that inner voice? Then I can create a safe space for my kid to do the same. But if I don't know how to do that, that means my kid will never know that either. And that's a huge motivator for me. It is hard work. It is hard
it's
work.
Boundary
setting and knowing it is so hard. But my motivator all the time is I don't want my kids to be 49 having to go to feeling school 101. I want them to be more free at this age in their life. I want them to have this language now so that by the time they're my age, they're focusing on something else. So it's, if this is our calling that we're supposed to be doing this work, great, but it's hard. Thank goodness there's people, and we're going to talk about how you work with people and what that looks like and how they can reach you. It is hard. I don't think we need to do it alone. And thank goodness for that. But I think it's not just for us. Yes, it will make us feel better. Yes, we'll feel more free. Yes, it'll help us have better boundaries, and that's going to be incredible. But it's hard, and I don't think it's just for us. And I think that's a huge motivator for me all the time.
It is for generations to come.
Yeah.
And we
no pressure.
See in our world today, we are needing this work.
We do need this work. It's really hard.
And so what you can do, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, the world is blowing up and, the US is like crazy. What can I do? You can do your own inner work.
Yeah.
And that will be so powerful and so impactful because that ripples out.
It does. And people think of that as not significant, but it's what's actually missing.
Right. It's like, well, that's not enough. Except it is.
It is because it's the thing that's missing.
It's the thing that will, create the change. Yeah, totally.
So how do you work? If there's a mom listening and she's curious about this, she's feeling some of those whispers. She's feeling a little anxious. She's feeling exhausted from performing. She's feeling like she's distracted and maybe feeling disconnected. Maybe she's missing some time with her kids and maybe feeling, it could be a couple of things. Maybe she's just feeling like she's meant for more and she's just feeling stuck and this is numb and she's feeling like this is really connecting with her. Where should she start? How should she reach you? What should she do? What's step one?
All right. Well, I would invite her to come over to the podcast, Chaos to Connection. Listen there, see, if you like what you hear, they can then, all my links are in the show notes to get on my newsletter if they want, a
Good.
little
Okay.
more. I have free resources that
Yeah,
are
you're great
linked
with that.
in the episodes and on my website. And then I also offer what I call breakthrough sessions, which is just a 60 to 90-minute session where a mom can, voice her concerns, her struggle, and we can talk through that. It might be, I don't understand my teen's behavior. I want to understand it better, or whatever it might be. We could, that's a starting point too. And I do also work one-on-one in what do I want to say? A longer,
In longer time frames.
coaching
Yeah.
container. Also, I work with a lot of women in that. And then, with that, we also, come together as a community and we do community calls, so that moms aren't feeling alone and they know they're not alone then. And
Love that.
they can hear the stories of others, and we can always see ourselves in other people's stories and know, oh, thank goodness I'm not alone.
Yeah.
That this is just part of the human experience.
Yeah. One thing before I let you go, I'd love to just hear if you can share one thing. When you stopped trying to be the perfect mom, how did it help you feel more connected to your kids?
I'm glad that you asked that, because really it always comes back to connection. It always comes back to connection. Why aren't my children listening? It always comes back to connection. And what does that mean? Because I know that there was a point for me too where I'm like, do I really know what connection means? And so really at the very simplest form of connection, it really starts with that connection to my own inner self, how I'm feeling, connecting to those feelings, connecting to my own nervous system, connecting to my own parts of myself, because we are many parts. We aren't this one entity. And so that's what I would say. It always, it starts with you being connected to you emotionally.
Yeah.
Because connection is an emotional development skill. And that's why I think a lot of us, we think we're connected because we're in the same room. We're doing the same stuff. Like growing up, we did a lot we were always at the dinner table every night, 6:00 sharp. You better be there. We did a lot in the same spaces, but we were very disconnected. And I didn't know that, of course. I just thought that's how all families were. And a lot of families are. But we can be in the same place. Like, I remember when my kids were growing up and, they'd get these things home from school and, oh, you should have family night. So I'm like, oh, okay, we'll have family night because that's what you're supposed to do. And so we'd have these family, and it's like game nights. And it's like, okay, this is not fun. Why are we even doing this? Because there was so much disconnected. We weren't connected emotionally. We were trying to, really what happens is we are regulated by other people's behavior. And so if they're acting a certain way, then we're dysregulated, then we blame them and they need to change, and then they're mad at us. And it's So connection starts with connection to our own emotions and starting that relationship there so that you can connect to your child or your partner or whoever on an emotional level.
Wow. And then you don't need all those forced gatherings, right? It just naturally is happening in the small, in whatever moments, right?
Yeah. And I'll say this. So this is why it's hard. So you connecting to your own triggers, you connecting to your own upset. So ownership, taking ownership of my own upset, taking ownership of my own triggers. So our children will trigger us like no other.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Because we take it personal.
Yep.
We are taking their behavior to mean something about us. And if it's, what we would call misbehavior, then it's, I'm not doing it right. It triggers us. But that is our trigger. That is happening inside of us. And so for us to go in and say, okay, I feel ya. And we can own that instead of blaming this person in front of us for whatever it is they're doing, because their behavior is actually revealing to us what's happening within them.
Yeah. So interesting.
It is fascinating.
It's fascinating. So and if I'm going to, so the first thing for her to notice before she starts working with you is just to notice that trigger, to notice that in herself and get curious about it. Why is this coming up? What is this trying to tell me?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say if you connect with this work, this resonates with you, then connect with me.
Yeah, there you go. Good night.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put everything in the show notes, your website, the podcast, your Instagram, and the freebie that you're so generously sharing with us. So she can just go start digesting and consuming everything that you're offering, which is great. I listened to the podcast, first of all, because there's just so much more that you go into, and she can just start getting more. What you and I talked about is incredible, but it's a snapshot of what you're really, really able to dive into.
And some people will take all that in and go, wow, this was great. And that's all they need. And that's wonderful. And then there's going to be others that are like, okay, I want more, because that's where I got to. There was a time where I could read the books and I was doing the things. But then it got to a point where I'm like, okay, I think I've gone as far as I can this way. Now I need somebody to walk beside me. And so, then that's when I hired my first coach. And
I'm all about that. I think it's so great to learn as much as you can. But I always say, I don't want to become a nutritionist, but I'd like to learn how to eat healthy. But I'm always going to, I'd like somebody else to learn how to do that. Right. I don't want to have to go to school for that. Right. So it's always great to, it's great to toe the line. But it's really nice so that you can focus on what you need to focus on in yourself and let somebody actually be the guide for you. It'll actually save you so much more time, energy, and money to have somebody
and
to help you.
That's so beautiful, Scotty, that you said that, because we all have something to offer.
100%.
The women that I work with, they have things to offer. Other 100%. Women, like say a nutritionist, they're not coming to me for nutrition.
Don't come to me for nutrition. Don't come to me.
I think there is also in our old system, there's this idea of responsibility is I'm able to do everything myself. Like if I need help, then I did it wrong, or I'm flawed in some way. And that is an old belief system. We need each other. We all have things to offer. And I always have somebody in my life mentoring me and, helping me with my growth.
100. I am always with a mentor.
Yes.
I always have some form of a coach. And it changes, right? Based on what I'm going through and where I am. But I love I always think about it. It's like a mentor or somebody who's maybe 5 minutes ahead, 5 months ahead, 5 years ahead, who just says, is this where you want to go? I can save you some time, energy, tears, and money. Let me nudge you in this direction. I think it's great. It's like having your best older sister, your best female guide, an ancestor in your corner, just somebody who wants it genuinely for you. I think it's having coaches and mentors, and because they become friends. They become people who really want the best for you. And I recommend it because
we become so deeply connected because we're doing this deep work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I recommend the podcast just so that you can walk around and hear Diane talk more and just get a little bit more in depth. But I definitely recommend, if this resonates with you, go to her website, go connect with her. Because in my mind, if this does resonate, that's not by accident. That's your soul nudging you. That's that authentic voice nudging you in that direction. And I think that's really important, that especially in 2026, we need to listen to those nudges. They're not by accident. They have our best interest,
and
right?
there's a lot of people who do this similar work that we're doing. And I think you really have to listen to who you connect to, because we're all energy, and your energy might connect with somebody else, and my energy might connect with other people, and so on and so forth. So you just have to really trust yourself and say, I just really love the energy of this person. This is who I want to work closer with.
I love it. Well, I love what you do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. I am excited to have this conversation and share everything out with my community. And you're just wonderful.
Thank you so much, Scotty. This was really a beautiful conversation, and I really appreciate you inviting me on.
It's great. All right. Thanks, everybody.